The fluorescent lights flickered above the high school gym, casting jagged shadows across the bleachers where I sat, clutching a half-empty water bottle. My son, Eli, was out there on the court, his sneakers squeaking as he dribbled, his face fierce with focus. But my heart wasn't on the game, it was on the man in the coach's polo, pacing the sidelines, whose glance kept finding me in the crowd. I'm Jacob Miller, a 38-year-old single dad who's spent the last decade building a quiet life in Willow Creek, Ohio, for me and Eli. After his mom left when he was 5, it's been just us, me working late shifts at the auto shop, him chasing dreams of basketball stardom. Tonight was just another practice, but something felt off. Coach Ryan Kessler, 39, with his sharp jawline and eyes that seemed to see through you, had been watching me too closely lately. Not in a threatening way, but like he was searching for something. I brushed it off as paranoid until he caught me after practice. "Mr. Miller, can we talk in my office?" Ryan's voice was low, almost too calm, as he stood at the gym's exit, his clipboard tucked under his arm. The other parents were already filing out, their chatter fading into the night. I nodded, my throat tight, and followed him down the dim hallway. The door clicked shut behind us, and he turned, his gaze locking onto mine. "I've seen you before," he said, his words heavy with something unspoken, like a secret clawing its way out. My stomach dropped. I hadn't been seen not like the 10 years. Not since I left behind a life I swore I'd never revisit. Back in my 20s, in a dive bar in Chicago, I was someone else, reckless, open, unafraid to love who I loved. But that was before Eli, before I buried that part of me to be the dad he needed. Ryan leaned against his desk, his arms crossed, waiting for me to speak. I didn't. I couldn't. The air in the room felt too small, like it was pressing against my chest. "You don't remember me, do you?" he said, softer now, his voice cracking just enough to make my heart lurch. He stepped closer, and I caught the faint scent of his cologne woodsy, familiar, like a memory I couldn't place. Summer of '09. The Blue Moon Bar. "You were there, Jacob." "So was I?" My mind raced back to that summer, to nights of cheap whiskey and stolen glances with a man whose name I never learned. A man with eyes like Ryan's, who kissed me under a flickering neon sign and vanished before dawn. It couldn't be him. Could it? My knees felt weak, but I stood my ground, my voice barely a whisper. "What do you want from me?" Ryan's jaw tightened, and he looked away, like he was wrestling with his own ghosts. "I'm not here to ruin your life," he said. "But I can't pretend I don't know you. Not when I see you every day, cheering for Eli, acting like that summer never happened." He paused, his eyes searching mine. "I need to know if it meant anything to you." I wanted to bolt, to run back to the safety of my truck, to the life I'd built where no one asked questions. But something in Ryan's voice, raw, unguarded, kept me rooted. This wasn't just about the past. This was about now, about the way my pulse quickened when he said my name, about the part of me I'd locked away that was screaming to break free. Eli's laughter echoed from the gym, pulling me back to reality. He was my world, my reason for everything. I couldn't risk it all, not for a memory, not for a man who might unravel everything I'd worked so hard to protect. "I don't know what you're talking about," I lied, my voice flat. "I've never been to that bar." Ryan's face fell, but he didn't push. He just nodded, stepping back to open the door. "If you say so," he said quietly. "But I'm not going anywhere, Jacob. Not yet." As I walked out, my heart pounded so loud I thought it might wake the whole town. I didn't look back, but I felt his eyes on me, burning through the walls I'd built. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The next week was a blur of routine oil changes at the shop, Eli's homework, dinners of frozen pizza, but Ryan's words haunted me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that summer. The blue moon's sticky floors. The way that strangers laugh had made me feel alive. I told myself it was nothing, just a ghost from a life I'd left behind. But when Eli begged me to come to the next basketball practice, I couldn't say no. Not to him. The gym was louder this time, packed with parents and the rhythmic thump of basketballs. I kept my head down, avoiding Ryan's side of the court, but Eli waved me over after practice, his grin wide. "Coach says I'm starting next game," he said, his 16-year-old voice brimming with pride. I ruffled his hair, forcing a smile, but my eyes betrayed me, flicking to Ryan. He was watching us, his expression unreadable. "Mr. Miller, a word," Ryan called, his tone professional but laced with something deeper. My stomach twisted, but I followed him to the edge of the gym, away from the other parents. No office this time, just the two of us under the harsh lights, the air thick with the smell of sweat and polished wood. "I meant what I said," Ryan started, his voice low. "I'm not trying to mess with you, but I can't keep pretending I don't remember." He glanced at Eli, who was joking with his teammates, oblivious. "He's a good kid. You've done right by him. But what about you, Jacob? What do you want?" The question hit like a punch. Want? I hadn't let myself want anything in years. Not since I traded late nights for early mornings, bar stools for parent-teacher conferences. "I want what's best for Eli," I said, my voice sharper than I meant. "That's it." Ryan's eyes softened, but he didn't back down. "I get it. I do. But you can't keep running from who you are." He hesitated, then reached into his pocket, pulling out a worn photo. It was us, me and him, younger, laughing outside the blue moon. My breath caught. I looked so different then, unguarded, free. "I kept this," he said, "all these years." I wanted to snatch it, tear it up, erase the evidence of a life I'd buried. But my hands stayed frozen. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Why now?" "Because I'm tired of hiding, too," he said. "I moved here to start over, to be honest with myself. I didn't expect to find you, but now that I have, I can't let it go." He stepped closer, his voice barely a whisper. "Tell me you don't feel it, Jacob. Tell me I'm wrong." I opened my mouth to lie again, to say I felt nothing, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I turned and walked away, my heart hammering. Eli was waiting by the car, his duffel slung over his shoulder. "You okay, Dad?" he asked, his brow furrowed. "Yeah, buddy," I said, forcing a smile. "Just tired." But as we drove home, the photo burned in my mind. Ryan wasn't just a coach. He was a mirror, reflecting a part of me I'd tried to forget. And the worst part, I wasn't sure I wanted to forget anymore. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the porch, the Ohio air cool against my skin, and let myself remember. The blue moon. The way his hand had brushed mine. The way I'd felt, for one fleeting summer, like I could be whole. But Eli was my priority. Always. I couldn't let this whatever it was jeopardize his future. Not in a town like Willow Creek, where whispers spread faster than wildfire. The next morning, Eli left for school, and I found myself driving to the high school. I didn't know why. Maybe to confront Ryan. Maybe to end this before it started. His office door was open, and he was there, sorting through papers. He looked up, surprised, and for a moment, Neither of us spoke. I don't know what you want me to say, I started, my voice raw. I can't be that guy again. Not here. Not with Eli. Ryan stood, closing the distance between us. I'm not asking you to be him, he said. I'm asking you to be honest. With yourself. With me. His hand hovered near mine, not touching, but close enough to make my skin hum. We deserve that much, don't we? I didn't answer. I couldn't. But as I left his office, the weight of his words settled into me, heavy and undeniable. This wasn't just about the past anymore. It was about who I could be if I was brave enough to try. The days after my visit to Ryan's office felt like walking a tightrope. Every glance at Eli, every routine errand, carried a new weight. I kept expecting Ryan to push, to corner me again, but he didn't. At practices, he was all business calling plays, correcting Eli's form, but his eyes still found mine, quiet and steady, like he was waiting for me to make the next move. Willow Creek wasn't the kind of place where you could be careless. It was a town of pickup trucks and church suppers, where different got you stared at, whispered about. I'd seen it happen to a Thursa lesbian couple who left after their tires were slashed, a kid bullied for wearing nail polish. I'd built a life here by keeping my head down, by being the dependable dad who fixed cars and showed up to games. But Ryan was cracking that facade, and I wasn't sure I could hold it together. One evening, Eli came home buzzing about the upcoming game. Coach says I've got a shot at a scholarship if I keep it up, he said, shoveling spaghetti into his mouth. He's tough, but he's fair, you know. I nodded, my throat tight. Ryan was good for Eli, pushing him to be better, to believe in himself. That made this harder. If Ryan was just a ghost from my past, I could shut him out. But he was here, now, shaping my son's future. I started noticing things about Ryan I hadn't let myself see before. The way he stayed late to help kids with their drills. The way he listened when Eli talked. Really listened. Like every word mattered. It reminded me of that summer. Of the man who'd made me laugh until my sides hurt. Who'd seen me when I felt invisible. I hated how much I wanted to feel that again. The game came, and the gym was electric, parents shouting, the crowd roaring as Eli sank a three-pointer. I cheered until my voice was hoarse, but my eyes kept drifting to Ryan. He was in his element, pacing the sidelines, his focus razor-sharp. When the buzzer sounded and Willow Creek won, Eli ran to me, sweaty and beaming. "Did you see that, Dad?" he said, hugging me tight. "I saw," I said, my voice catching. Ryan was behind him, clapping for the team, but his gaze met mine. For a second, the noise of the crowd faded, and it was just us. Then Eli pulled me toward the team huddle, and the moment broke. After the game, I lingered in the parking lot, telling myself I was waiting for Eli. But when Ryan walked out, alone, I knew I'd been waiting for him. He stopped a few feet away, his breath visible in the cold night air. "Good game," I said, my voice awkward. "Yeah," he said, shoving his hands in his pockets. "Eli's something special." He paused, then added, "So's his dad." My heart stuttered. "Ryan," I started, but he shook his head. "You don't have to say anything," he said. "I just needed you to know." He turned to leave, but I grabbed his arm, surprising myself. His eyes widened, and for a moment, we stood there, the world holding its breath. "I'm scared," I admitted, my voice barely audible. "This town, Eli, I can't lose what I've got." Ryan's expression softened. "I know," he said, "but you're not alone in this. Not if you don't want to be." He didn't push, didn't ask for more. He just stood there, waiting, like he'd been waiting since that summer. I let go of his arm, my fingers tingling where they'd touched him. I need time, I said finally. He nodded, and as he walked away, I felt something shift inside me, a crack in the walls I'd built, letting in a sliver of light. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Eli was asleep down the hall, dreaming of scholarships and NBA games. But for the first time in years, I let myself dream, too. Not of the past, but of a future where I didn't have to hide. It was terrifying. It was exhilarating. And it was all because of Ryan. Time didn't make things clearer, it made them messier. Every practice, every game, Ryan was there, a steady presence that both grounded and unnerved me. I started finding excuses to linger after practices, telling Eli I needed to talk to Coach about his progress. Half-truths. I was chasing something I couldn't name, something that felt like freedom but tasted like fear. One rainy Tuesday, Eli had a late practice, and I offered to drive him home. The gym was nearly empty when I arrived, the rain drumming against the roof. Ryan was alone, stacking chairs, his shirt clinging to his shoulders from the humidity. "You're early," he said, glancing up with a half-smile. "Got off work early," I lied, leaning against the bleachers. The truth was, I'd swapped shifts to be here, to see him. We talked small things at first, about Eli's jump shot, the team's chances in the playoffs. But the conversation shifted, like it always did with us, to something heavier. "You ever think about leaving Willow Creek?" Ryan asked, setting down a chair. "Starting over somewhere new?" I laughed, bitter. "And go where? This is home. Eli's got his friends, his team. I can't uproot him." Ryan nodded, but his eyes were sharp. "What about you, Jacob? What's keeping you here, besides Eli?" The question stung. I wanted to say it was enough being Eli's dad, keeping things steady. But the truth clawed at me. I was staying because it was safe, because hiding was easier than facing who I was. "I don't know," I admitted. "Maybe I'm just used to it." Ryan stepped closer, his voice low. "You deserve more than used to it. You know that, right?" His hand brushed mine, just for a second, and it was like a spark in the dark. I pulled back, my heart racing, but not before I saw the hurt in his eyes. "I can't," I said, my voice breaking. "Not here. Not now." He didn't argue, but he didn't move away either. "I'm not asking you to have all the answers," he said. "I'm just asking you to stop pretending you don't feel this." He gestured between us, his voice raw. "Because I do. Every damn day." I wanted to tell him he was wrong, that I could keep pretending forever. But the lie wouldn't come. Instead, I turned and walked out into the rain, letting it soak through my jacket, hoping it would wash away the ache in my chest. It didn't. At home, Eli noticed something was off. "You're quiet tonight," he said, pausing his video game. "Everything okay?" "Just work stuff," I said, ruffling his hair. But his eyes lingered on me, too perceptive for his own good. I wondered what he'd think if he knew. Would he hate me? Would he understand? The thought of losing him, of losing his trust, made my stomach churn. The next practice, I avoided Ryan's gaze, focusing on Eli's drills. But when the team broke for water, Ryan called me over. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I pushed too hard. I see you, Jacob. The real you. And I can't unsee it." His words hit like a wave, pulling me under. I wanted to tell him I saw him too, the man who'd kept a photo for 16 years, who'd moved to this small town and still carried hope in his eyes. but fear kept me silent. Fear of what this town would say, of what Eli would think, of what it would mean to let myself love again. I need to think, I said finally, my voice hoarse. Just give me that. Ryan nodded, his jaw tight. Take all the time you need, he said. I'll be here. As I drove Eli home that night, the rain still falling, I felt the weight of my own silence. I'd spent years protecting Eli, protecting myself. But at what cost? Ryan wasn't just a memory, was a chance at something real. And for the first time, I wondered if I was brave enough to take it. The weeks blurred, each day a tug of war between fear and longing. I kept my distance from Ryan, but it was like trying to outrun my own shadow. He was everywhere in the sidelines, in Eli's stories, in the quiet moments when I let myself imagine a different life. I started noticing the way his laugh carried across the gym, the way his hands moved when he explained a play, steady and sure. It was dangerous, how much I noticed. Eli's team was on a winning streak, and the town was buzzing. Willow Creek hadn't seen this kind of excitement since the 90s. I threw myself into the role of proud dad, cheering at games, hosting team barbecues. But at the latest barbecue, in our backyard, Ryan showed up with a six-pack of soda and a smile that made my chest ache. He fit in too easily, joking with the kids, helping me flip burgers. It felt like a glimpse of something I wasn't allowed to want. Coach is cool, Eli said later, helping me clean up. He talks about you a lot. You know. Says you're a good dad. He grinned, oblivious to the storm inside me. I forced a nod, my throat tight. If only he knew. That night, I found the photo Ryan had shown me. I'd taken it from his office, slipped it into my wallet when he wasn't looking. Stupid, reckless, but I couldn't let it go. I stared at it under the dim light of my bedside lamp. Two young men, laughing, free. I barely recognized myself. But I remembered how it felt to be that guy, to love without fear. The next game was an away match, and I volunteered to drive some of the team. Ryan was in the passenger seat, the kids rowdy in the back. The drive was long, the Ohio countryside stretching out under a gray sky. When the kids dozed off, Ryan turned to me, his voice low. You've been avoiding me. I gripped the wheel tighter. I'm trying to do the right thing, I said. For Eli. For everyone. He was quiet for a moment, then said, the right thing isn't always the safe thing. Jacob. You know that better than anyone. His hand rested on the console between us, close enough to touch. I didn't move, but I felt the pull, the possibility. At the game, Eli played like he was born for it, and Ryan coached with a fire that made the crowd roar. We won, and in the chaos of celebration, Ryan pulled me aside, his hand on my shoulder. Come to the team dinner tonight, he said. Not as Eli's dad. As you. I wanted to say no, to keep the walls up. But something in his eyes, hope, defiance, something I hadn't seen in myself in years, made me nod. Okay, I said, my voice barely audible over the crowd. The dinner was at a diner off the highway, all neon lights and greasy fries. The team was loud, the parents louder, but Ryan and I found a quiet corner booth. We talked not about the past, but about now. His life before Willow Creek, my years at the auto shop. It was easy, too easy, like slipping into a song you haven't heard in years, but still know every word. As we left the diner, the night air cool against my skin, Ryan stopped me by my truck. I'm not asking for everything, he said, his voice soft but firm. Just a chance. One step at a time. I looked at him, really looked, and saw the man who'd kept a photo for 16 years, who'd found me in a small town and dared to hope. One step, I said finally, my heart pounding. But I'm not promising anything. His smile was small, but it lit up the dark. That's enough for now, he said. And as I drove home, Eli asleep in the back, I felt something I hadn't in years, alive. One step became two, then three. Ryan and I started meeting outside of practices, coffee at the diner, walks by the river when Eli was at school. We didn't call them dates, but they felt like it. Each moment a quiet rebellion against the life I'd been living. Ryan didn't push, but he didn't let me hide either. He'd ask questions about my dreams, my fears, and listen like my answers were the only thing that mattered. Willow Creek started to notice. A cashier at the grocery store gave me a knowing look when she saw us together. A neighbor asked Eli if Coach was over a lot. I brushed it off, but the whispers were growing louder, and I knew what they could mean in a town like this. I'd seen the way people turned on those who didn't fit in. I couldn't let that happen to Eli. One night, after a late coffee run, Ryan walked me to my truck. The street was empty, the stars bright above us. "You're happier," he said, leaning against the hood. "I can see it. Even if you're still scared." I laughed, a little bitter. "Is it that obvious?" "To me it is," he said, his voice soft. He reached for my hand, and this time, I didn't pull away. His fingers were warm, steady, and for a moment, I let myself believe this could work. Then headlights swept across us, and I yanked my hand back, my heart racing. It was just a passing car, but it was a reminder this wasn't safe. Not here. Ryan's face tightened, but he didn't say anything. He just nodded and stepped back. "I'll see you at practice," he said, his voice flat. As he walked away, I felt like I'd lost something I hadn't even fully claimed. At home, Eli was up late, studying for a history test. "You're out a lot lately," he said, not looking up from his textbook. "With Coach, right?" My stomach dropped. "Yeah," I said, trying to sound casual. "Just talking team stuff." He nodded, but his eyes were sharp. "He's cool, Dad. But people talk, you know. In town." He paused, then added, "I don't care what they say. I just want you to be happy." I stared at him, my throat tight. He was 16, but in that moment, he seemed older, wiser than me. "Thanks, buddy," I said, my voice rough. "I'm trying." The next game was a big one, regionals. The gym was packed, the air thick with tension. Eli was on fire, but I could barely focus, my eyes on Ryan. He was intense, shouting plays, but every so often, he'd glance my way, his expression unreadable. When the game ended in a close win, the crowd erupted, and Eli ran to me, hugging me tight. "We did it, Dad," he said, his voice muffled against my shoulder. Ryan joined us, clapping Eli on the back. "You killed it out there," he said, then looked at me. "Both of you." It was a small moment, but it felt like a promise. After the game, I found Ryan in the locker room, alone, packing up. "Eli knows," I said, my voice low. "Not everything, but he knows something's up." Ryan's eyes softened. "He's a good kid," he said. "He'll understand more than you think." "I'm scared," I admitted, the words spilling out. "Not just for me. For him. This town. I know," Ryan said, stepping closer. "But you're not alone, Jacob. Not anymore." He didn't touch me, but his presence was enough, steady and warm. For the first time, I believed him. As I left the locker room, Eli waiting outside, I felt a shift. Not just in me, But in Uzmi, Ryan, Eli, we were on the edge of something new, something terrifying and beautiful. And for the first time, I wasn't sure I wanted to run. The whispers in Willow Creek grew louder. At the auto shop, a coworker made a snide comment about Coach spending too much time with certain parents. At the grocery store, a cashier's smile felt forced. I told myself it didn't matter, that I could handle it. But when Eli came home with a black eye, my world tilted. Some kids at school, he said, his voice steady but his hands shaking. They said stuff about you and Coach. I told them to shut up. He looked at me, his eyes searching. Is it true, Dad? Are you and Coach together? I froze, my heart pounding. I'd spent years shielding Eli from this, from me. But he wasn't a kid anymore, and he deserved the truth. Yeah, I said, my voice barely audible. I think we might be. Eli nodded, his jaw tight. Okay, he said. I don't want you to get hurt. Or me. He paused, then added, but I like Coach. He makes you smile. I pulled him into a hug, my eyes burning. I'm sorry, I said. I never wanted this to touch you. It's okay, he said, his voice muffled. Just be careful, okay? The next day, I found Ryan at the school, his office door open. I didn't wait for an invitation. Eli got in a fight, I said, closing the door behind me. Because of us. Ryan's face fell. God, Jacob, I'm sorry. Is he okay? He's tough, I said, my voice shaking. But this town, it's not safe. Not for this. Ryan stood, his eyes fierce. Then we make it safe, he said. For us. For Eli. We don't have to hide forever. I laughed, a bitter sound. You think it's that easy? You think we can just... No, he cut in. It's not easy. But it's worth it. You're worth it. He stepped closer, his hands on my shoulders. I love you, Jacob. I loved you then, and I love you now. I'm not running from this. His words hit like a tidal wave, washing away my defenses. I'd spent so long fighting this, fighting myself. But standing there, with Ryan's hands on me, his eyes steady and sure, I felt something break free. I love you too, I whispered, the words foreign and terrifying and right. We stood there, the world outside fading, until a knock on the door startled us apart. It was Eli, his backpack slung over his shoulder. Coach, you ready for practice? He said, then saw me. His eyes flicked between us, and he smiled, small but real. I'll wait outside. As he left, Ryan took my hand, his grip firm. We'll figure this out, he said. Together. That night, I sat Eli down and told him everything, not just about Ryan, but about me, about the man I'd been, the man I was trying to be. He listened, quiet, then said, I just want you to be happy, Dad. Like, really happy. It was the closest thing to absolution I'd ever felt. But Willow Creek wasn't done with us. The next morning, a letter arrived from the school board, requesting a meeting about concerns regarding Ryan's conduct. My stomach sank. This wasn't just gossip anymore. This was a fight. And for the first time, I was ready to fight back, not just for me, but for Ryan, for Eli, for the life we could have. The school board meeting was set for a Tuesday. The gym empty except for a janitor sweeping the floor. Ryan and I sat outside the principal's office, our knees brushing under the table. Eli was at home, safe, but his words echoed in my mind. I just want you to be happy. Dad. I held on to that. A lifeline in the storm. The board was polite but cold. Their questions veiled in accusations. Concerns about professionalism. They said. Inappropriate relationships. Ryan stayed calm, his voice steady as he explained that his personal life didn't affect his coaching. I wanted to scream, to tell them they had no right to judge us. Instead, I spoke quietly, my hands trembling. Ryan's the best thing that's happened to this team, I said. To my son. To me. The room went silent. The board chair, an older woman with sharp eyes, leaned forward. Mr. Miller, we're not here to dictate your life. But this is a small town. People talk. Let them, I said, surprising myself. I'm done hiding. Ryan's hand found mine under the table, and I didn't pull away. The board didn't fire Ryan, but they issued a warning, keep it professional, or he'd be out. It wasn't a win, but it wasn't a loss either. As we left, Ryan squeezed my hand. You were incredible, he said, his voice thick with pride. The next weeks were hard. Some parents pulled their kids from the team. Others stood by us, their support quiet but fierce. Eli took it in stride, his chin high, his game stronger than ever. Let them talk, he said one night, echoing my words. We're tougher than that. Ryan and I stopped hiding. We held hands at the diner, walked together in the park. The whispers didn't stop, but they lost their power. Willow Creek was changing not fast, but enough. A few kids started wearing rainbow pins to games. A teacher invited us to speak at an assembly about acceptance. Small steps, but they mattered. One spring evening, as the team celebrated a championship win, Ryan pulled me aside. The gym was alive with laughter. Eli at the center, holding the trophy high. I want this, Ryan said, his eyes on me. You, me, Eli. A family. My heart swelled, too big for my chest. Me too, I said, and for the first time, I believed it was possible. We kissed, right there in the gym, with the crowd cheering around us. Some stared, some smiled, but it didn't matter. This was our life now. Years later, Eli went off to college on a basketball scholarship, his future bright. Ryan and I stayed in Willow Creek, not because we had to, but because it was home. We built a life not perfect, but ours. And every time I looked at Ryan, at the man who'd seen me when I couldn't see myself, I knew it was worth every fight, every fear, every step. Because love, real love, doesn't just find you. It fights for you. And we'd fought for this together.